Okay, so we still have about half of the kids who signed up for this to still come in. Hopefully they'll come in throughout this meet, but we're just gonna start without them right now. So just hi, my name is Angel. If you look in the Zoom, my name says Mr. Julian. It's actually because I'm borrowing one of my teacher's Zoom accounts to have a prolonged meeting. And yeah, so I made this nonprofit organization called Made to Change. And basically, we're just very passionate about making sure students learn and making sure that students enjoy learning. And usually we direct our audience to younger learners from about first grade to about sixth grade, but we decided to change things up and do something new. So we're hosting this university webinar. And yeah, I'm also part of BICE. I go to BICE, and yeah, this is a nonprofit that's really just connected with BICE and connected with BICE staff and BICE alumni. And yeah, now I'm gonna stop sharing, and now Josiah, who attends UC Berkeley, is going to give his presentation and his webinar on college admissions and applications. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much, Angel. Yeah, so let's see. So I'm Josiah. I'm a former BICE alumni. I'm attending UC Berkeley, and yeah, thank you, Angel, for giving me the opportunity to present this. So yeah, we can just jump right into it. So I guess the title of this is just breaking down college or college applications. So before I begin, I just want to give a little disclaimer of where I'm getting my information from. So you see here from UC Berkeley, MIT, Harvard, Brown, Georgia Tech, Johns Hopkins, Caltech, Princeton, among many other universities. So I had the good fortune to meet with college admissions counselors and to talk to them about how admissions process works, getting to talk to students who actually attend the universities, good friends with a couple of them who went to Caltech, to Johns Hopkins, and sort of kind of gained a bit of information as to like how you should be tailoring your applications, but also beyond that, how you should be sort of scheduling your next years in high school to best prepare you for college. So before getting in further, a little bit about myself. I'm a UC Berkeley student. I'm a part of the Biomedical Engineering Society, and I'm an officer there. Over the last year, I've taken 2 internships, one at the National University of Singapore, where I was mentioned in a published paper, and in Johns Hopkins University, where I work on electrical signaling and prosthetic arm mechanical signal detection movement. My majors are bioengineering and material science engineering, and my minor is one of the 3 of CS, Econ, or Mech-E. Currently, I'm in the process of deciding which one, but econ is I'm leaning towards econ as sort of my minor for the next years. Okay, so now into the juicy part in which you guys are here for. Some things you actually might encounter in college, is just a broad structure of you'll be facing some of these if you're going to engineering, if you're thinking about it, this is what you might encounter. So they say that there's in high school, there's there's an old saying, right? Choose one, and if you're lucky, you get 2, right? You can either choose vibrant social life, strong academics, or good sleep. And more often than not, you only get to choose one, right? And so college is basically the same thing. There's many things that you have to sacrifice in order for you to get something else. So what are colleges really looking for? So in regards to how important your whole application is, you have to sort of break down sort of these individual aspects of your application. So your GPA, your extracurriculars, your essay, your SAT score, etc., right? But of these 4 sort of major groups, you can see that GPA is half of this whole pie chart, which means that your GPA is extremely important, right? However, if GPA is your whole thing, but you disregard extracurriculars, your SAT score isn't that good, that's 65% of your application technically, even if you write a good essay and you have a good GPA, right? So holistically, as a whole, you must be very balanced or else your application is going to suffer. And because there's a focus on making sure that your application as a whole isn't sort of leaning in one direction or another, colleges don't want to see robots, right? They don't want to see people who have the same scores, have the same extracurriculars they do, they have the same essays, have the same SAT scores. They don't want that. They want leaders of the next generation, right? They want talent. They want something different, something unique, right? So how do you promote yourself as something unique? That's something that colleges want to look for. Leadership is especially important. They don't want this. They don't want robots. They want an actual human being to attend their college. Another thing that colleges are really looking at in the current sort of past decade is like a focus in community service, right? So how do I use my talents, or how do I use my abilities slash interests slash passions to use it to help my community? And you want to be very honest in how you deal with your community, right? Are you just doing this because you're supposed to? Is it a school requirement? Or are you doing it just because you're really interested and you really want to do this, right? Because colleges are more concerned about, so the kind of the tip in which to view college applications is colleges are looking for people to say, we created this dude, right? We created this leader who gave back to our community by giving us standing, right? So if he becomes famous because of us and our education and our investment into him, that's a success, right? So colleges are looking for those type of people who are serving the community and have the ability to hone their talent to be able to give back to others. So how do we prepare for it? So there's four sort of main points that I want to kind of talk about, and they're basically the starting blocks to how you're going to approach the college, sort of how you begin to approach or think about approaching college. So what is focus? So these are sort of your dreams and goals. So what do you want to do in the future? What sort of things are you interested at the moment? What do you see yourself doing in the future? Why do you see yourself there? What are your talents? These are some of the questions that you have to kind of wrestle with as you kind of enter high school. I suggest starting early, like 6th grade, 7th grade, if you can. I know some of you guys aren't 6th or 7th grade, but just start really thinking about it, because the less time, because sort of longer that you wait, the less time you have to really decide on a major, right? And so something that might help you guys is to think about, what do you guys not want to do, right? So for me, I have no talent in violin, right? But so I can't say like, I want to be a great violin player. It's like, yeah, it's possible, but I needed to start really young, right? So it's not very feasible at this current moment. But if I were to say, I want to study engineering, which my track record has shown that I have done, engineering related stuff, it's a very possible dream and future goal, right? So start with small steps of like, what do you want to do in this next week, right? What do you want to do? How do you find your dream, right? And with those small steps, kind of build up, what do you want to do with your life? And then that will give you a better answer as to how you want to approach your high school experience in life. Next is core. BICE offers this distinguished diploma, which is offered towards students who achieve a certain amount of classes or curricula. So take advantage of that. And also for your English classes. Your English classes are very key to a successful application, because your essays hinges on the your essays hinges on your English skills, right? So if your essay is well written because of your English classes, then that's a plus for you. And in addition, developing a core understanding of math and science is going to help you understand, if you're going to engineering, why those two things are very interconnected, but also how you can incorporate English into those mix, right? So that you just don't become like a math nerd or like an English major, right? But you become sort of something of like a well-rounded student. That's what colleges are really looking for. They're looking for someone who's balanced but shows interest in specific things. Another aspect of core is your testing. So your PSAT, SAT subjects, TOEFL, etc. Right? There are going to be many other tests. IB is also another one of them. And if you come from Singapore, there's the A-level, O-level tests. But since you guys are here in Indonesia, you guys don't have to take A-levels and O-levels. These are sort of like the mandatory college tests that you have to take to enter a US college. Some universities, like overseas, might not have the same requirements. So I would suggest going to their website for colleges or universities you're interested in, and sort of look through their information page and see what's the requirements to apply. Some universities will actually say like SAT score optional, SAT score recommended, but what they're really saying is, you submitting it, so basically if you don't submit it, you look kind of there's like they think that there's something wrong with the application, like maybe you didn't get a good score or whatnot. So submitting it is sort of in your best interest. Extracurriculars. So something that has come up is I've sort of encountered a lot as I've been talking with people, high schoolers, especially at my internships, is how do I format my extracurriculars, right? And there isn't exactly like a clean answer of a one size fit all of like do this, you get into this college, right? Because people have just different talents and different interests. Um, I don't like art, so forcing me to go to like paint a mural at like a street or whatnot isn't exactly going to be best for me because I have no interest in it. But someone who has an interest in it, or someone who wants to be an art major, that's a good project for them, right? Community service in that method. So do things that reflect your interest and passion, not just because they look good on your application. And so on that side note, there's also like this sort of rumor going around, or I guess sort of saying that's trying to throw around is like you want to join as many clubs as possible, you want to do this and this and this, you want to make yourself busy. Yes and no. For your beginning years or first couple of years before you apply to college and whatnot, so your eighth grade, ninth grade years, you should be sort of experimenting. This is for your eighth or ninth graders here, is you should be joining as many clubs as possible, right? But after that first year, really trim down and see like what am I truly interested in, right? Like maybe I find this club, oh, it's interesting, but when you enter it, it's like, maybe this is not really what I want to do. Right? So you want to be very selective in which clubs you choose because you don't have a whole lot of time. You have to be very serious about a couple of things. And also, what colleges are looking for is continuity. How long have you been doing the extracurriculars for? If you start at your second semester of senior year, that's a little too late, right? You're only doing it for one semester, and college is kind of like, you're doing this just so that you look good, right? So you want to have a longevity of your extracurricular saying, so this person's been involved in this for this period of time because he really likes it and he's passionate about this. That's what you want to imply or promote to the universities. Also, reminder again, just be serious about a few things and really make an impact in those clubs. Do what you can, be an officer, make however impact you can in those clubs because colleges will look at that and say, in this environment, the student has dedicated himself in this manner and applied himself in this manner. He is a good fit. That's usually how most of these applications go. The last part is life. Like in the beginning slide, or one of the first slides, I said, having a good social life is sort of something you might have to give up, which is true. However, colleges are more interested in you as a person rather than you as a score, right? So colleges can only sell. So scores are sort of like your entranceway, like they're your ticket to get in. So if you have a good score, okay, congratulations, you enter the first sort of gates. However, the second gate is just who you are as a person. So this will come through your essays, your supplemental essays, if colleges require it. But overall, this is just who you are as a person. Do you spend time with your friends? What do you spend your free time on, right? Your time, however, this time is something that you have to be willing to give up in order to pursue your dreams, right? Because you only have a limited amount of time. And you definitely shouldn't be sacrificing your studies for life, right? But you should definitely be definitely kind of thinking all of these in balance. How do I best manage my time to have sort of these different factors? Personal tip. So I want you guys to just think about this right now. Imagine if you have just one extra hour per day. Let's say there's 25 hours per day, right? How are you spending your extra hour? What are you doing it on? So I'll give you guys 30 seconds. Are you spending it with your friends? Are you cramming your missed homework? Let's do it the next day. Okay, right. So the first point of the exercise is just to let you know how much time you actually have, right? If you say like, "Ah, I don't have enough time to study, I don't have enough time to do this and this and this. Um, but what if I told you you always had that time, right? So this is something I took out from the by sort of schedule, right? So let's say so there's in a day there's 24 hours. School, depending on whether you have extra classes outside of the normal school hours, school will take about this much time. Traveling to and from school, depending when you come from Bandung or not, 15 minutes to 1 hour 30 minutes, right? Sleep, if you don't like sleep, that's like your 4 hours there. But most of us, they will want to shoot for this. Homework should take about 3 to 4 hours if you're like really concentrated on it. And then must do's like eating, showering, taking care of like the daily chores of the family, and then some extra time, right? So this is how much extra time you have per day. So if you decide, right, to you're busy, you travel 1.5 hours, you sleep 8 hours, you do homework for 4 hours, you have tons of chores, you still have like 45 minutes of free time, right? However, if you take, I don't sleep at all, homework, I focus, really focus in 3 hours, it doesn't take long for me to travel to school, you have almost 9 hours of free time. So depending on how you spend your time, you need you can sort of manage your life in a way where you can always have sort of this extra time for yourself, right? Because sometimes you're distracted. I'm also guilty of this. Sometimes you're cramming on lab, you're doing your lab work, and cat video pops up for your best friend, and you're just like, oh yes, right? Um, and, you spend 15 minutes on that, but then cat videos are cool, but then there's like a rabbit hole, right? And you go to like, oh, there's like these cute dog videos too, right? So you're watching them with your friends on Discord, and you're like, oh shoot, I wasted an hour, right? So time management is going to be very helpful for you guys in college, right? This is a very personal tip, right? So how you manage your time is going to be very important. And this is going to let colleges know, so this person understood the importance of how much time you have in the current now, but also how to save time, right? How to invest that time into something else that you're interested in. So if you see right here, if the average, right? Let's say you're like sleeping in the middle, right? So it's not like you're sleep deprived, right? So you're in the middle, right? So what are you spending the hour on, right? You can use the 2 hours for community service or something else because you always have that time, right? But you must save yourself some time for you to recover, to relax, to rest. Okay, choosing colleges, right? So in line with sort of what we've been talking about, you want to find out what you're good at, right? And it's kind of set goals for yourself. And then by setting goals for yourself, kind of finding colleges that sort of fit those goals and talents, right? So if I'm good at engineering, right, I don't go to an art school because that makes no sense, right? However, if I attend an engineering college, there's so many of them, right? So it's like where do I start? So these are a couple like of the criteria that most people kind of think of. So size of campus and class, right? So how big is the campus? Do you want a class of 50 students? That's your whole class, or do you want like Berkeley is 3,000 students, right? City environment, right? Is it public? Is it how do you say it? Is it surrounded by forests, right? Is it a big city? Is it a small town? Are you surrounded by like cornfields everywhere, or are you like there's no trees at all? So you have to really think about like where do you think you'll do your best? Public versus private school. Public schools, generally going to be more expensive just because they don't give a lot of scholarships. Private and the scholarships are only given to those who are in-state students or students who live in the state within the United States. And private schools tend to be more generous. However, they're more selective. Majors, sort of, what are you interested in, right? What do you want to study? Requirements like your SAT score, your GPA, study abroad opportunities. A lot of colleges are now offering these sort of programs where you can take a semester of college somewhere else. So I know a couple of my friends are doing that in Tokyo. A couple of my friends are doing that in Berlin. So find out like if you want to study abroad for like a semester or two, that could be a very reasonable thing. And some of this is actually college funded, so the college funds your study abroad. So really kind of like search through and really like see the college's websites, because they're going to give you the most information about those type of things. Um, and again, scholarships, the cost of attendance, specialized programs. So specialized programs are sort of like medical school, whether you want to go to medical school or not, whether you want to attend a business school with a specific sort of degree requirement. Liberal education is a big one. So in the United States, liberal education has sort of popped up as a sort of crowning sort of way to teach children, right? It's not only do we teach you engineering, especially for like a lot of STEM fields, is not only do we teach you engineering, but also we teach you how to engage in engineering in a way that's ethical, right? So we teach you humanities. So you become less of a nerd, but more of like a well-rounded student, right? So you're able to talk about literature as an engineering student. So they're wanting to find like sort of a balance, right? So they don't want like a certain group of same individuals, right? They want a breadth of people. So in light of what I just said, this is just I'm not going to make you guys think about this for too long, but where do you find yourself in 5 years, 10 years, tomorrow? And if you can, just write them down. I mean, perhaps now, perhaps after the meeting, but try to think through these, right? Um, if you see anything you don't like perhaps like tomorrow it's like school, right? And then it's like I'm unmotivated, right? It's like I'm probably just lazing around or whatnot. Um, I'm pretty sure you guys don't do that, but if you see anything like that, it's like maybe I'm like doing this and this. But if you don't like what you're doing, then perhaps it's time for you to change that, right? So this is a goal. Technically, this is a goal setting tip for anything, but you can use it for college, for your education purposes, for your studies. So where do you see yourself in like a week from now, right? So I'm studying for a midterm. So what steps have I taken? And then you can sort of go down that trail and see, okay, what can I do now? And this is going to help you a lot in understanding where you are now and what you can do to get to the next step. Okay. So your essays. So your essays are going to be a very, very big thing in college applications, because this is going to tell you who you are as a person, right? So colleges have sort of these different requirements for essays. So one is your long 650-word essay, and they're going to give you a prompt, usually through Common App or Coalition application if you're applying to U.S. colleges. And the prompts you can just look them up online. They're really, really simple, but they really want to find out who you are as a person, right? Colleges are not looking for robots. They already say, your SAT grades are okay. They want to find out who you are, right? Think of it as like a discussion. The college admissions counselors want to admit you. They are on your side, right? So you want to make them interested in you. So think of it as sort of like a coffee chat, where like you're having coffee with them and you're telling your story to them one-sidedly, right? You can't hear their feedback, but you're telling them your story. So you want to make your story in a way that compels them. It's like, I support this person. This person he's going to be a good fit for our university, right? And the biggest tips I can give you for that and what to expect for it is to start early. So junior year, like second semester junior year, start then. Because summer's going to be busy because you're going to have your own stuff. You have to take care of other college applications. It's just going to be busy, busy, busy. And then once first semester of senior year hits in, right? Like, oh wow, like I only have like 3 months to submit my college application essays. Like there's like panic, right? And it's not like you're applying to one, you're applying to like couple. So there's many essays you have to write. So starting early gives you many chances to edit and improve your essay, but also it gives you more chances to see, this idea, how do I promote myself in this way, right? And that is going to take you far. Word economy is going to be very important. Some essays have a word requirement, or so basically have word limits. So a lot of these essays have word limits. So 650 words maximum is the bigger essay. So it goes from 650, 500, 350, 100, and 10. Right? So a lot of these just going to have to do with how comfortable are you with your words. You don't want to be very like long and lengthy, right? So you can say like, oh, the roses are such a vibrant red, right? Versus the roses are red, right? One has more feeling, right? But one gets straight to the point. And because you don't have much words to begin with, going straight to the point is sometimes in your best favor because it lets you tell more of the story, right? Um, and if, as you're telling your story, be sure to include your own personal thoughts and reflection and your growth. That's going to be very, very important. You want to be really honest. So freshly from the heart, right? You want to be very honest about like, how are you feeling? How are you doing? How did you grow as a person, right? Colleges want to see that type of, so perhaps you faced a challenge, perhaps, something happened. How did you evolve from there? What did you do to, overcome those challenges? Or like just who you are as a person, right? They want to really know who you are, which is why they're giving you the opportunity to write essays. And in addition, tailor your essays, especially your supplements, right? Colleges are going to require like, a different amount of essays for their own colleges. They're just going to ask you questions. So you want to be very specific. So let's say you're applying to Johns Hopkins, and Johns Hopkins is known for the APL, which is the Applied Physics Laboratory, sorry. So like, oh, like, but other colleges don't have that. So you can say, oh, I'm interested in Johns Hopkins because I have the opportunity to join APL, right? Or be a part of APL or internet APL or something of that sort, right? So colleges get to know, so he did research our college. He knows what he's talking about, right? He's interested in us enough to know about these certain specific small details. So really, as a very, very, very sort of important tip, look through the colleges that you're really interested in and just scour their website. Spend an hour every day. Try to if you can, right? If not, maybe 15 minutes, 30 minutes. But the important part is you want to look through those websites and see, what information can you find? What interests you from the college? What do they offer? What's the college experience like, right? And if you can, ask students who go there. It's going to be really, really helpful for you. So yeah, that's just how you write your essay. Lastly, lastly, you have an interview, right? So some colleges require an interview. So the interview is sort of staged in a way they're trying to get like a personal one-on-one contact with you as applicant, right? So they're going to send a former alumni, they're going to send either a counselor or someone just to meet you, right? Because we're in Indonesia, they'll probably be through video. I had the good fortune to meet with an MIT alumni here when I was interviewing for MIT. And I got to meet in person, and it was good. It was really amazing. If you can meet in person, because video contact is kind of hard, it's very, very difficult. You want to dress well, sort of in a manner where, some colleges will say, hey, like dress business casual. So look up business casual and say, oh, okay, this is how I should be dressing. And you want to dress in that style. If they say, hey, let's just, this is a casual interview, right? Then wear casual clothing. But a little better than casual, right? You don't want to be wearing like your sweatpants, and you don't want to be wearing like a sweatshirt. You don't want that, right? You want to dress decently, a little bit better than what they ask for. So if they say business casual, spiff yourself up a little bit. Use a little bit of gel if you're a guy, and then girls, wear like a pen skirt or something else, right? Be honest and be yourself in these interviews. Because a lot of it is they're just asking questions because they're genuinely interested in knowing you, right? And a lot of these interviewers come in with the mindset of, what person do I want to see at my university, right? They have some sort of sense of pride in knowing that I graduated from this university and I'm scouting for talent, right? And usually, if you have an interview, it's a good sign. It means that you've reached the sort of last stage of decisions where they're like, oh, okay, we really want to know just a little bit more about this person. What can he give us, right? So they send an interviewer. And this interviewer is going to be on your side. He wants you at that college because the colleges have admitted you to that sort of last step of interviews. So interviews are sort of like that last criteria, right? That last sort of gate if you will. So the fact that you're having an interview means college is interested in you. Because college is interested in you, the interviewers are as well. So you want to be very honest and be yourself, right? Because it's from your impression that you give to them, the interviewers will sort of relay that to the colleges. And these interviews tend to be very informal. They'll ask you sort of like, what did you do? Why did you do these things? Um, what was your purpose? What made you do this in the first place? So they ask some of those questions, but at the end they'll ask you sort of like, do you have any questions for me? And you don't want to be like all like blah, 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 right? Like, you have this question, like, will I get in, will I not, right? But you want to be very tactful. So how was your college experience, right? Be interested in their college and their experience, because then they'll be like, so this person can hold a conversation, right? So this person is actually interested in my experiences as a graduate student, right? As an alumni. And that's going to help you sort of gauge, is this college really like, what you want to go through, right? Because now you have an actual chance with the person to see, so this was what they did. And above all, stay calm and relaxed. Because the more you tense up, the more you sort of like lose track of what you're trying to say. So being relaxed, trying to stay as calm as possible allows you sort of to, flow through the questions well and to answer the questions well. Sort of a key thing that I would actually suggest to you guys, like if you guys, really need some time to think, like maybe they asked like a pretty big question, like, so what effects do you think this has upon like society or in the environment, right? That was one of the questions I had. And so you can ask for the interviewers like, hey, can I get a minute to think about it? I never really thought of it that way. And they'll give you that minute, right? And they appreciate you asking for that minute because you've taken the time to actually seriously consider, right, their question. And that's going to help you kind of be better in their eyes, right? They're going to be like, so this person takes me seriously. So I get to take them seriously too. Right? So it's kind of like a small tip that you get to do in interviews that's really going to help you. Okay, so the last thing. So colleges aren't waiting for college decisions is sort of like this difficult process, right? It's like you submit your application, you wait like 3 months, and you're just like fiddling your thumbs, you're twiddling your fingers, right? It's like, do I get in or do I not? This is where the letter of continued interest comes in. So this is like sort of a cheesy example, right? So applying to college is like asking someone out, right? You think there's chemistry between you and a certain university, right? So perhaps you're the guy, the university is the girl, or vice versa, depending on gender, right? So you send in your application, right? You send in your if you like watch anime or whatnot, the letter, right? So you submit it, put it in the locker, right? And you're just like, okay. And so this analogy is kind of cheesy, but just please bear with me, right? So the response is usually like one of these three things, right? You either get accepted, right? It's like, yes, right? You get rejected, and then you get waitlisted or deferred. There's sort of two responses that you can go with, right? If you're waitlisted or deferred. One is you just don't choose to do anything, right? So you get on the wait list. You're considered, again, if someone like decides not to go, then you're placed in. Then you don't automatically get to go. There's like a sort of ranking, but there's a way for you to sort of increase your chances of getting off the wait list and into the admitted list, which is called letter of continued interest, right? So the letter of continued interest is sort of like a brief email or letter, like a physical written letter, that is sent to universities kind of detailing what you did during the time since you submitted your application, right? So you don't want to focus on like, okay, I submitted this application. You don't want to focus on before you submitted your application because colleges already saw that in your initial application. They want to find out what did you do since that time period, right? So you have to be very honest about like what you've done, because colleges find out. They have a lot of sort of networks that will find out what you've done. You don't want to come across as clingy, like please let me. Like no, colleges don't want that because they're treating you like an adult, right? They're hoping that you can take that rejection seriously or that deferment seriously. However, you want to promote yourself and say, I'm really interested in your school. Restate your interest, right? Why you think you're a good fit. You want to be as detailed as possible what you've done, right? But you don't want to toot your horn so much as like I am the best human being. Like you don't want that. And the last thing, a lot of students kind of forget this, is you want to thank them for your time in reading your letter and reading your application. Small words of gratitude is going to take you very far. So thanking them is something a big thing that you're going to have to include, right? Because they've taken the time to actually consider your application seriously. And by thanking them, you kind of give them a sense of like, okay, this person cares about the application process. And additionally, include your contact information. They might call you and say, hey, so we have a spot open, or we have a summer program that leads into the what's that called again? The regular semesters. Do you want to join that? Cool things might happen that way. So you want to be very thorough in how you write your letter. And that's going to help you increase your chances of getting to college if you are placed on the wait list. And that's about it. Yeah. So good luck in your college applications and good luck in your sort of process of applying to one. Do you guys have any questions? So kind of, since we have 15 minutes, I guess we can open this up for like questions and I can probably answer them to the best of my abilities. Yeah, anything else, Angel? Or
Yeah, everybody just feel free to ask any question, whether it's about like college experience or any other things that maybe you missed during the presentation. And yeah, you can either turn on your mic and ask questions, or you could ask questions via chat and we'll just answer them through there. And if we don't have questions, I have several pre-prepared questions that some students might be interested in hearing the answers to. So yeah, we'll just give it a minute for students to ask questions. Okay, so yeah, I actually have one question for you. So what were some specific things you did in high school that you felt helped you in your journey to getting accepted to UC Berkeley?
let's see. So in applying to UC Berkeley, there's a lot of sort of different factors that you have kind of to account because it's a public school. So you have to realize that because it's a public school and it's a large and prestigious one at that, there's sort of, you have to realize that you can't do everything because at the same time, all the students are doing everything. So you want to be very specific about your own situation. So coming from Indonesia, I attend this small school. My school is only, my class only had 9 other students. Kind of explain your situation. And by explaining your situation, then going into your extracurriculars with the approach of, what can I do in this? What can I do in this space, right? So something that I did was I interned at Jayakalian, which is the Blue Hospital, which you guys probably know, as a radiology intern, a physiotherapy intern, and a customer service intern. So I kind of worked in those fields for 6 months each. So I got to kind of really know about the intricacies of like how the hospital works, and that sort of interest sparked my my passion to go into the medical industry, right, as a biomedical engineer, right. Something else would be just to immerse myself in sports, right. The odd thing about sports, especially for the smaller schools, is that if you're not participating in like national or regional events like tournaments, sort of mentioning that you did sports is kind of like okay, right? So you did sports, but kind of not really. But do include it because it tells you like how much what you spent your time on. But be prepared for them not to take it as seriously as someone who's like on a national level rank, right? So be prepared for that. But in terms of extracurriculars, I feel like what really helped me most was the gap year I took after I graduated from high school. So if you guys don't know what a gap year is sort of a whole year you take out that you usually do between high school and college, and you do that to sort of uh, get experience through internships or jobs and find out what you really want to do through those. So I did an internship at National University of Singapore and also one in Johns Hopkins, and that really helps me solidify, this is really what I want to do. Engineering is my life, basically.
Mm-hmm. Wow. So yeah, we have several questions private chatted. Somebody asked, what is the SAT range usually acceptable for UC schools?
Oh boy. So that's kind of where the things that's where kind of the things, like, how do you say it? Statistics sort of falls on the wayside, is because you want to have a decent SAT. Because if you're applying with the 800, chances are you're not going to get in, right? But let's say, um, the reason you got an 800, right? You can talk about the series of circumstances surrounding it. It's like, I didn't, you know, let's say, you grew up in a certain condition, like an environment. You only have one parent, perhaps. Um, you couldn't, you had to support your family. You had to work like two jobs or whatnot at night. Um, you know, there's colleges are very understanding of your situation, and they're going to be very real with you. So it's going to be very, like, how do you say it? It's going to be very broad. My Some of my friends, their SATs were in the thousands range, so 1,000, and then a couple of my friends have like perfect SAT scores. So it's really down to how you promote yourself as a person. Because SAT is just a benchmark of like how well do you think you can do in college, but and people change over time, right? So perfect SAT score person, might not do well in college because he's just so focused on getting a perfect score that he doesn't realize there's so many opportunities. So don't be too fixated on the on the particular SAT score. Set a goal. I would say if you want to apply to like top universities, above 1,400 is your best bet. Um, so 1,400, anything above that is perfect.
Okay, awesome. We have another question. This time it's about a specific university. What's the ideal SAT score to be admitted to UC Davis? So it's also another UC school.
Yeah.
Is it
So
just the same?
for
Or
the SAT scores, I guess you can sort of look them up online. A lot of these, so there's a lot of college sites that are like, that kind of popped up in recent years that kind of give us general statistic. Going to like the actual UC Davis website, they give you sort of these um, charts of like, the average percentile of like, UC school SAT scores, right? Specifically for UC Davis, they'll give you like, oh, UC Davis SAT students generally have this SAT score. As an average, right? So from that average, think about like, where do I fall on that average? It's best to be above the average. I would suggest um, going to the website and just finding the information. But as a general rule, anything above 1,400, you're good.
Mhm. Okay, and we have another question. When would there be an interview? I'm guessing this is like in the college application process. When would there be an interview?
Yeah, so the interview is probably going to come later. So there will be, uh, like sort of, they'll let you know about the interview. So they'll give you like a certain time frame in which an interviewer will contact you, and then from there the university is going to organize some way to get you guys together. So they'll reach out, the interviewer is going to reach out to you, say, hey, you know I think you're going to be in their vicinity, right? Like you're within 20 kilometers, let's say. Okay, we can have arranged to like meet in person. So that's something that you guys can do. I highly encourage you to meet in person. Please, please, please meet in person. It's going to help you so much because you can sort of uh, get more personal, I guess, with like more of the things that you're talking about. Because a video call is kind of like you just see like a profile picture and that's it, right? And it's kind of stressful, honestly. So human interaction is going to be very, very beneficial. COVID's probably going to hinder that, but I guess since the application period has sort of closed, um, next year might not be as bad. But it's still something that you should probably keep in mind. So as much as possible, make it human, make it interaction based. I see a question in chat. What's my GPA SAT when I graduated from high school? Okay, so my GPA. Let's see. Can I not answer this question?
Yeah,
And then my SAT. So SAT, I graduated with let's see, 1550. So 1550. So that was my SAT score. Um, let's see. What habits did you start to prepare for college? Habits. And what habits did I start once I got into college? If you get culture shock, how do you cope with it? That's a really good question. So habits that I did start to prepare for college. A lot of it is just time management. So how do you manage your time? It's something that you just have to work on continually. I have a very bad habit of not sleeping very well, just because I try to keep myself busy because it's like a mindset of just like I need to do something. But over the course of sort of this past year, finding out that like I've gotten sick so many times, so being sort of being flexible with your time and understanding that you need to rest is going to be very important for you. Um, a habit that I did start once I got into college is like setting aside periods of time to nap. Um, so 15-minute naps in the middle of the day. Um, you can't exactly do that in high school because teachers are looking at you napping in their class. It's like right, and break time's too short for you to nap. But whenever you can in college, because they'll give you like an hour or two in between classes or not, depending on how you schedule your classes, which is a completely different thing. Um, Try to fit in a 15-minute, 30-minute nap. It's going to help you so much because it just resets your brain. Because there's scientific studies that show that when you sleep, whatever you learn kind of gets transferred into your brain. So it becomes part of your deep memory. This is something that I did in NUS, which is talking about consciousness. So if you can, sleep is going to be very, very important for you. And
wow,
then about the culture shock one, how do I cope with it? Talk to people. Honestly, the best way to get rid of culture shock is to talk to many, many different kinds of people. So a bit of my history is I've lived in Indonesia for 15 years. So I always get a culture shock when I move back to the US because it's like, whoa, like what the heck happened, right? So all these people are like, they're like, the clothes they wear like is kind of like, whoa, it's like, okay. Bright neon stuff. It's like, okay, you don't see that here, right? So, just going outside, getting used to it. I mean, in COVID, it's hard to go out, but whenever you can, just talk to people. It's gonna help you get through
Mhm. Yeah. We have some other private chat. Somebody asked me, since the SAT is now optional for most colleges, is it still necessary to take it? What are the advantages if I do take the SAT?
Oh, that's a good question. So you want to take the SAT. The reason being because although it's not required to submit it, taking it is going to give you such an advantage because if they ask for it and you say I didn't take it, that's like a red flag in the application saying, oh, okay, this person is not serious about college. And you don't want that. You want to be very, very serious about your college application. So I would suggest taking it, even if they don't recommend it. You don't have to submit the score, right? Um, but if your score is like high, like perhaps you got like a 1500. Be proud of it, brag, right? It's like, haha, college, this is my score, right? Be proud of yourself of your score. If your score is on the lower side, don't worry. You have different chances to do it. SAT actually, a very, very, very good tip. Take it early as possible. So try to take it like junior year, like the first available option in your junior year, so 11th grade. And that's going to give you sort of the most chances possible to take the SAT. And you want to take each test seriously, right? Um, so it's not like, it's like, like I just, because you don't want to be studying for like for the SAT for 2 years straight. You want to just be done with it in one sitting. Something also that colleges are actually allowing is something called super score, which is they take your best math score from all the SAT tests you took and your best reading score from all the SAT tests you took. So some people, right, they focus, this is a possible sort of avenue for which you guys can do things, but if you, some people, for some people it actually works. So you take the test twice. One, you focus on reading and writing, the other you focus on math, and that's all you do. So you don't touch the reading portion, you don't touch the math portion on your first test. So first one, you do the reading, you do the best as possible on the reading. Math, you kind of just skim through it. Second test, you do just the math reading portion, you kind of just skip through it. And they're going to take the two best scores, right? And because they're taking the two best scores, right, you're reading only, you only did your reading and only did your math, right? So then they combine those two. It's kind of expensive because you have to pay twice the SAT cost. I wouldn't really suggest it, but it's a viable strategy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have another question through private chat. They asked, suppose I apply to a college 1 year and then I take a gap year to improve my extracurricular activities. Could I apply to that same college after that gap year?
Gotcha. So I'm assuming you got in college, right? So when you get into the college, right, there's something that you can ask the university to give you, which is a sabbatical. So sabbatical, they give you maximum of 2 years where you can kind of like, like I just want to drop out of college for now. I have like some things I want to work on. Or perhaps it's like, I want to find myself, right? College is stressing me out. I don't know what to do. College will give you 2 years. You will have to talk to your advisors, right? You can't just like suddenly like just drop everything and then go, right? Because then they'll be like, oh, incomplete FF, right? So it's like, oh. So you want to be very clear to your advisor. Say, hey, like I really want to take a year off, right? I want to, and this is what I plan to do. And colleges are more than likely to do it. Some colleges actually have a gap year program before you start university. But after university, it's going to be very much harder. I would suggest trying not to, if possible, to take a break from college in between, because you start forgetting the things you've learned. And in addition, so some people here are going to be serving Korean military. I would suggest trying to take it after your first year, because after your second year, you start taking upper division courses, which is sort of your classes that are specific to that major, right? Because your first year is only like general stuff, like general chemistry, general math, general whatnot. And you want to focus and do well on those, but you want to do especially well in your core classes, which are your requirements, right, for you to graduate, because that's going to help you in your engineering career or whatever major career you want. I see a question in chat, kind of activities I did during high school. So, so I interned at the hospital, student council president, math team. I led math team. I taught the math team, made my own curriculum for that. Let's see, I was part of the international business internship program. I led that for 4 years. And so the program, just a bit of the details about it is, so there's a team in Nigeria who contacts us every week or so, and we meet up to find kind of general solutions for a specific business problem. So let's say a business has a problem with advertising. How do we best advertise within that specific locale that helps their business improve and grow, right? So things that generally, activities that you want to look for to do in high school is things that sort of give back to your community, because colleges are very, very interested. They love that type of stuff. They go bonkers, right? They're crazy for it. I keep saying all this, but this is so true. A lot of students don't do community service. So the fact that you do community service, especially within your own community, and make a visible impact, like, this did this in my community, that's going to be a very, very big thing. Colleges will love it. And your application is going to be viewed more nicely. How do you know engineering is the major for me? It didn't take very long. I was good at math and science. Well, strike that. I wasn't good at math and science, but I always wanted to be good at it. So my willingness, or like my desire to be good at it, kind of made me interested in it. So, but then also I thought it was the best avenue for me to, pursue my dream, which was to make prosthetics cheap and affordable. Because a lot of people are disabled or amputated, right? And so they can't support themselves, right? Because with only a stump, there's only so much you can do with an elbow, right? Let's say. So giving it a way for people to have an affordable arm, right, with hands and digits that you can use, it's going to be very helpful for them, not only in, like in living their day-to-day life, but also letting them work, right? There's like an aspect of like dignity, right? There's like a whole psychological thing with like amputees and whatnot. So being able to treat that sort of that root cause in a form of a cheap prosthetic is, why not?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, we have one question from private chat that asks, what if somebody's GPA is actually higher than the requirements, but their SAT score doesn't fit the requirements? Should they still submit their SAT scores?
Ooh, okay. So that's a good question. It really just depends on you. If it's a required thing, if you want to apply, just submit it. But as I said again in the previous, like one of the first slides I put, which is your GPA is your most consistent factor, right? So they'll look at your GPA first and foremost. How well did you do during your 4 years of school? And that's going to be because that's going to show consistency throughout school, because SAT is just one type of test. Um, However, if your SAT score is sort of low and you're concerned about it, I would suggest taking it again, and just really honing and studying about like the parts that you missed. I know the math section and the reading section are particularly hard because they changed it in a way that sort of forces you to think a certain way for the test specifically. And I kind of don't like that about the SAT, which is like they make you think a certain way, but never really gets applied in college. Because college, they teach you a new way of thinking, depending on which college you go to, of course, but that's something you have to keep in mind. I see a question in chat. Study habits, part-time jobs. How do I manage your time? Yeah. So what are my study habits? So I love note taking, especially for lectures, because like it or not, college professors are going to speak extremely fast. Um, so so actually, one of my college professors, he talks twice as fast as I do now. So he's like rapping as he's lecturing us. So writing notes is like pain. Um, it's good now that we have online lectures because you can watch in 0.25 speed. So you can kind of like actually hear him talk like a normal human being instead of like rapping his lectures to us about physics. But writing notes is going to help you in the long run because there it's visible, but also there's like a cognitive slash there's actual physical activity related to your notes. Study habits, also setting a general timeline. So, at what times are you going to study? For me, studying happens best in the mornings and in nights. So I try to try to arrange my time in that manner. Um, so a tip is if after you write notes, after the lecture's over, read over your notes once or twice for 15 minutes, and that's going to deeper ingrain that information to your brain. Do I do part-time jobs? No, but I'm part of various clubs in Berkeley. So that's kind of how I spend my time. And how do I manage my time? Calendar. Google Calendar is going to help you sort of like gauge like what schedule you have, especially with college because everything is sort of fitted in. But also it gives you a general rough line of timeline of like when's your next midterm or when's your next test or when's your next quiz, when's this homework due, when's this project due, and that kind of gives you like a general like a very big like bird's eye view of when are things due and how do I work around that schedule. Um, in addition, also college is very much the time itself is very much variable. So high school is very much strict, right? There's only like you have to attend school for like 7 to 8 hours, right? College is you get to spend as much time as you want in classes. So on Tuesdays, I have classes for 8 hours, and 6 hours straight I have classes. So one class after another. On Fridays, which was yesterday, I only have 2 hours of classes. So it really depends on how packed you make your schedule. But you also have to note that you can't just spend like that time outside of class doing nothing, because that's not going to be very productive for you, because you have so many tests and exams to prepare for. It's crazy, yeah. And each class has at least 2 midterms, so you must be prepared for that. And they're hard. The average is 60%.
Oh, geez. Wow. We have another question sent through private chat asking whether you take any internships.
So what, I took any internships?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I interned at NUS and also Johns Hopkins. Um, I also interned at the Chaya Lian. Um, so basically, I guess something I can add to that is, in regards to internships, you want, and like how to apply for one, I guess. I would suggest looking online or looking at your connections. So if your father knows somebody, or um, being if you're if you if your father, if your parents know somebody, if you're like your grandparents are somehow like related to this like person who does the same thing as you want to do, maybe asking for them to be connected, because that's a lot of what usually goes on in the industry is, the amount of people you know is the amount of avenues in which you have options, right? So if you know more people, you have more options, especially later down the road. So college is going to be especially important, right? So outside of class, you want to manage your time whilst you study, but also you want to manage your time just enough so you have enough social life, so that later it's like, I hung out with you. Hey, you have a business. Are you looking for someone who does this? Oh yeah, I remember you. I'm looking for someone who does this. Sure, you're perfect. It's kind of how things work in industry, in real life. So knowing many people is going to help you very, very much in life. And
Mm-hmm.
kind of relates to the culture shock thing of like, talk to a lot of people, get to know them, and then they'll get to know you as well.
Yeah, for sure. I think everybody's learning a lot from this Q&A session. We have several more questions. Somebody asked, where is a good place to start for extracurricular curriculars slash community service? How do I know I've done some already in the past?
Ooh, okay. So I guess like a couple of requirements is, or a couple sort of general criteria is, what what do you like, what was your intent or purpose slash goal, right? So what are you trying to achieve through that community service? So what specifically are you trying to do? So are you trying to paint a mural, right? For like a specific building or a specific house? That could be community service, right? Any ways in which you contribute to community in a way that's very tangible, right? That's going to have an effect, is community service. So mm, I can't exactly think of a good example of where to start, but finding needs in the community, like perhaps setting an English club for for kids who want to really learn English, or tutoring. Tutoring is a good example. So if you're like really good at English or math, use those talents, right? Um, Especially with the rise of like stuff with online YouTube videos, making YouTube video about a specific subject that you're really good at. So hey, today we're going to talk about like multiplication. Make YouTube videos for like younger kids. Um, that's been popping up recently. So finding avenues for which you can plug yourself into these various sort of needs is going to be very important for you overall, because it lets you understand sort of the dynamics of how the community runs. So it gives you a better sense of, so this community, so my environment, right? So there's this need, there's this problem. I can do this. And that's usually how community service starts. So yeah, something of those lines. And also asking around, some businesses or some corporations or some like, institutions, say, hey, are you looking for an intern? Or hey, like I can serve at these times. Do you want me to serve? It's like, or do you have like a volunteering thing open or available? It's like, yeah, sure, we can use you. Sometimes it just goes like that. So asking around is going to help you a lot if you're interested in looking for an intern, for a community service thing.
I think we have one last question before we end. What are the advantages of internships for college applications?
Yeah, so internships are different from sort of anything else is because they're mostly business related or academia related. So they're specific towards, furthering your passions because it's not like tutoring, right? Because tutoring is just you teaching other students, right? It's part of community service, right? But it's not it's not integrative as you normally would find in an internship. And what I mean by integrative is, so in an internship, you actually do the things the rest of the workforce is doing. So at Johns Hopkins, when I was interning, I was actually in part of making robotic fingers and robotic arms and connecting them to amputees and finding electrical signals, attending conferences held by the military at some of the university conferences. At Singapore, I was actually doing EEG research, putting on head caps. I have several pictures about like my involvement there, but you get to experience more things with an internship about what you're actually going to do in that field. And that's going to be really helpful in telling you like, do I really want to do this or do I really not, right? I don't want to be I don't want to be a data scientist, for example, because there's too many different factors that I have to keep account of, and working in that field just for a little bit during my time at NUS, it's like that's not what I want to go to. AI is too big for me, and although AI will sort of be like integrate, it will be very much present, right? It'll be very much common in the future. I'm more interested in coding or in computer science, right? And how to control the data rather than how to create a system that controls the data, right? So it just depends on your interests, right? And you want to, and internships are, I guess, how they're beneficial to college is they let colleges know, like, hey, you actually want to do what you say you want to do. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I just have one last thing to show you guys. Is it okay if I share my screen, Josiah?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Let me just take over. BICE is actually hosting new student scholarships. So all of you guys, I know some of you guys attend BICE, but all of you guys who aren't a part of our BICE community, you guys have a chance on getting a full ride to go to BICE. As some of you might know, BICE has like a full American curriculum with multiple AP classes. So that could really, really help you get into the university of your dreams. So these are just some criteria for achieving and receiving the scholarships. I'm just going to put the link in the chat if anybody is interested. And yeah, that's basically it. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming to our event. This means a lot to us that many of you guys are interested in events like these. It really encourages us to make more of them. And yeah, thank you so much, Josiah, for wanting to be an amazing guest speaker for this event.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me. That was a pleasure. And it's nice to meet you guys too. Good luck in your college application. Seriously, good luck.
Yeah, it was awesome to see you guys. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye, thank you.
Thank you, Josiah.
Yeah,
No
thanks.
worries,
Thank you, Josiah.
Thanks, David.
Yeah, thank you, everybody, for coming. Thank you.
Hi, bro.
All right, Lydia.
Mom and Dad's here.
How you doing?
Pardon?
Mom Mom and dad is here too.
Oh, that's right. You guys are watching this.
Angel, good job.
Grazie.
I said, Angel, good job.
Thanks for coming, Lydia.